unprecedented developments in the neighboring country of Bangladesh that we all witnessed yesterday. The mayhem, the chaos that we witnessed. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled the country on Monday after hundreds of people were killed in a crackdown on demonstrations that began just as protests against job quotas and swelled into a movement demanding her downfall. Let's take a look at all the ground reports that's coming in from Bangladesh with regards to what exactly happened and transpired in Dhaka yesterday.
As Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned on Monday and fled the country, protesters stormed her residence in the capital of Dhaka and began looting one of the most protected buildings in the country. Elsewhere in the city, they chiselled away at the face of a statue of her father, state founder Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, with an axe. India's ANI news agency said 76-year-old Hasina landed at a military airfield near Delhi. Reuters could not immediately verify this, but commercial tracking services showed a Bangladesh Air Force plane leaving the country and flying west before it disappeared. The news of her exit was delivered by Army Chief General Waqar Uzzaman in a televised address. He said after a discussion with political leaders, an interim government would be formed.
Please keep faith and trust in the Army. I take the responsibility and I promise to protect the lives and property of the people. Don't lose faith in the Army. God willing, we will fulfill your demands and bring peace and harmony back to the country. I request to you all to support the Army and stop the violence, murders, hooliganism, and the protest.
Bangladesh has been engulfed by violence after student protests began against quotas, which reserve some public sector jobs for veterans of Bangladesh's 1971 independence war. In some of the worst violence since the birth of the South Asian nation more than 5 decades ago, about 250 people have been killed and thousands injured. It escalated into a campaign to oust Hasina, who won a 4th straight term in January in an election boycotted by the opposition. In defiance of a nationwide curfew, there was jubilation as thousands of people marched in the streets of the capital.
We will never forget the student martyrs who have freed us today. They will always be in our hearts.
Now, in a dramatic turn of events in Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina resigned as Prime Minister on Monday and fled the country. Hours after Sheikh Hasina's resignation, President Mohammad Shahabuddin ordered the release of opposition leader and former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia from jail. In a statement, the President's press team said that a meeting led by Shahabuddin had decided unanimously to free Bangladesh Nationalist Party Chairperson Begum Khaleda Zia immediately. Meeting has also decided to free all the people who've been arrested during the student protests. This is the statement that was released. Meanwhile, Army Chief General Waqar Uzzaman, along with the head of the Navy and the Air Force and other top opposition leaders, which included the BNP, the Jamaat-e-Islami party, attended the meeting. Earlier on Monday, Army Chief Waqar Uzzaman announced that Sheikh Hasina has resigned and said that an interim government will be formed soon to run the country. So who is Khaleda Zia? Let's take a look at her profile. She's the chief of Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the main opposition party in Bangladesh. Born on 15th of August 1945 in Jalpaiguri in Bengal. Her political career began after the assassination of her husband, Ziaur Rahman, and she became the first woman Prime Minister of Bangladesh in the year 1991. Also served as the Prime Minister for a second term from 2001 to 2006. Her government's term ended in 2006. January 2007, the elections were postponed due to political violence and infighting. This led to a military takeover of the caretaker government. During its interim rule, the caretaker government charged Zia and her two sons with corruption. Suffers from multiple health problems. As we know, Khalida Zia is in fact currently confined to a hospital, and she's often travelled overseas for medical care as well. This is Khalida Zia for you. In a big development, she has now been released from jail as per the orders that came in from the President's office yesterday. After the ouster of Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government, Indian security agencies were ready for a contingency as she was headed towards India for safety in an Air Force jet. Indian Air Force radars were actively monitoring the airspace over Bangladesh and detected a low-level flying aircraft around 3 p.m. coming towards India. Aircraft was allowed to move inside India as the air defense personnel knew who was inside the plane. In a bid to provide security to the plane, two Rafale fighters aircrafts from the 101 Squadron of the Hashimara Air Base in West Bengal were in fact airborne over Bihar and Jharkhand. Aircraft was on its flight path and was closely monitored by the agencies on ground, with constant communication between it and the top Indian security officials on ground. Indian Air Force and Army Chiefs Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary and General Upendra Dwivedi were monitoring the situation very closely. A top-level meeting of top security officials was also held with the involvement of Intel Agency Chiefs, General Dwivedi and Integrated Defence Staff Chief Lieutenant General Johnson Philip Matthew. There are in fact historic visuals that we see from yesterday. One such visual being of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina seen being rescued by a military chopper. This is the first photograph, ladies and gentlemen, that was released, which confirmed that yes, Sheikh Hasina is being rescued out of Bangladesh, and it was the confirmation of the possibility of Sheikh Hasina stepping down from the prime ministerial role. These are the images that we're bringing to you, one that we've been keeping our focus on since yesterday itself, since the very visuals emerged and surfaced. Sheikh Hasina and her sister, both of them were rescued and they were flown out of Bangladesh amid the massive chaos that erupted. We in fact went on to see how these protesters barged into Gana Bhavan, and there was mayhem and chaos caused after that. It was outrightly right there as we saw all the visuals emerging from there. But this one visual, in fact, was the one that confirmed for us that Sheikh Hasina was leaving Bangladesh. Now, the Indian government has granted former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina an interim stay following the collapse of her government. During this period, India will offer comprehensive logistical support as Hasina pursues asylum in the UK. Her stay in India is approved only temporarily, pending her relocation to Britain. Hasina was received by NSA Doval and will be kept at a safe house in Delhi. Hasina, who resigned on Monday following unprecedented anti-government protests, is on her way to London through India. As of now, there has been no confirmation from the United Kingdom government regarding the grant of political asylum for the former Bangladesh Prime Minister. Hasina is currently seeking asylum in India with her sister Rihanna, who is a United Kingdom citizen. Meanwhile, Indian government sources said that New Delhi is closely following the fast-paced developments in Dhaka amid all that's developed. Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina continues to be the top focus for the day. There is so much that's developing in the neighboring nation, and the events, very events that transpired yesterday in the neighboring nation has drastically changed the dynamics of the subcontinent in South Asia. Sheikh Hasina has resigned and fled to India after weeks of violent unrest. She will likely head to London from India. Interestingly, however, this isn't the first time that the former Bangladesh Prime Minister has sought refuge in India.